almost unpredictable. I mean, I doubt if anybody would have had the vision to envisage something like this. No, those were very hard times. I mean, the Franco blockade was horrific. It hurt people not just politically because of the decisions to strangle our economy, but also to hurt people at a personal level, families across the border. We all remember the children being taken to be seen on the other side, about 100 meters away, and the humility and the people screaming across, Mira el niño, look at the baby. And on the other side, I mean, it really horrific scenes. So that would have hurt a lot. And the contribution by Radio Gibraltar with the request records, where they told people, Dad has come out of hospital, he's okay. Johnny has had a new job. Or Mari Carmen has lost her baby or had a new baby, happy family situations. And then the funerals, trying to get across in time and having to go through Morocco, Tangier, and sometimes not getting there. So there was a lot of hostility, and a lot of people suffered as a result. So that will be difficult to erase from the collective memory of the Gibraltarians.
But of course, the younger generation won't remember that, because we were talking the other day, remembering just how much of a blockade it was in terms of telephones as well. Do you remember the telephones were blocked? I used to get "Se ha cruzado la línea" and you could hear your neighbour talking. But I don't think that perhaps the new generation, the younger generation, hasn't lived that, but there's still that element of trust, as you say, to get through.
Well, there's no doubt that there is a new generation and they haven't lived it, so it's a different scenario to those of us who've lived it or those of us who followed it very, very closely. That we have to take into account. But at the same time, we have to tell the story, and it's got to get across to future generations so that nobody forgets the suffering and the tough times that Gibraltar went through. That mustn't be forgotten. It's like the Second World War. Our parents went through the Blitz in London and they suffered a lot. I mean, these things have to be remembered. But of course, you have to look ahead. It is also true that you cannot look back. And we have been put in a scenario through Brexit, as we all know, which was not of our making. And we even voted against Brexit to leave. We wanted to remain. So really, we've been caught in it, not through our choice. And we have to deal with the situation.
Tell me about, you say people who've lived it, but you've lived it as a journalist. So tell me about your recollections of living this story.
Well, initially, when I first started on television, the frontier was already closed. So I remember the enclosed days and doing television in a very restricted area in Wellington Front, where things were very limited. But we fought for it and carried on, and morale was high. There was good social life. And then later, I lived it in Spain because I went across and I did reporting for GBC for some years before I came back. So I saw the other side. And in fact, I saw more of Madrid and other places in Spain and a lot of Europe, because I traveled as well a lot, than I did the Campo area. One of the first things that struck me when I came back to Gibraltar was that I knew Madrid better than I knew the Campo area, which was really my area, no? And that is ironic in itself. No? But of course, in Madrid, it wasn't felt the way it's felt here. They had other issues to worry about other than closed frontiers.
So remind me, where were you when the frontier reopened?
I was in between Madrid and Valencia, and I did a few reports from there. I managed to get an exclusive interview with the foreign minister, Fernando Moran, which I was very happy because it gave GBC an exclusive long interview, which I did in the foreign ministry in Madrid. And then that was around 83, because the frontier opened in 82, as you know, in December, the first socialist government under Felipe González. And they opened for humanitarian reasons, and he gave me an interview which did an extensive view of how they saw the frontier opening and the Brussels agreement and all that. And then eventually, a bit later, I came back. I felt I had to be here. My experience of Spain, my command of the language, I thought, I can't live these historic moments down in Gibraltar. I want to be there. And by pure chance, there was a vacancy at GBC, and I applied and I came back.
You came back and then poacher turned gamekeeper because you actually went to work for the government and the press office. So tell me how you've seen things change, because you've been, part of your job has been to put that message across, to put Gibraltar's message across, and sometimes to a very hostile audience. So how difficult was that?
Well, when I came back, I already knew, because I had seen it from Madrid and from Spain, how little there was to know about Gibraltar, or how little they knew about Gibraltar in Spain. I mean, they thought of Gibraltar as a military base with the British forces here, and they couldn't think that there were people like me, a Gibraltarian, born here, parents Gibraltarian. In fact, when I spoke to people in Madrid and I said where I came from, I wasn't a regular thing. They didn't meet many Gibraltarians, and I realized how little information there was, and wrong information about Gibraltar. So when I came back, I thought we need to get this message across. And then through journalism, I met a lot of people in Spain. I already had a lot of contacts, kept establishing those contacts. And then when I came into the job of media director, then I thought we've got to do something about this. And then I started setting up an operation in Spain where we would get our press releases translated and sent into Spain through Info Gibraltar, Miguel Bermergen, that you know. And that made a bit of a difference, but it's still a thankless task. And of course, I used to go over a lot to Spain, to Madrid, and meet journalists and meet politicians to lobby. But very obviously, the politicians who would see me were more on the center left than on the center right. And because the center right weren't too keen to speak to me. They didn't want to know. A lot of the things that we argue about, that we weren't a paraíso fiscal, fiscal paradise, they didn't want to know. They knew we weren't, but they didn't want to know. So it was a thankless task, yes.
How have you seen things change? We were speaking earlier about the younger generation. A lot of the politicians that you're talking about were brought up on a diet of Gibraltar Español. So have you seen things changed? Is the job easier?
Well, it's still there. It's not going to go away very easily. There's a strong element of right-wing forces in Spain, as you know, politically, and with what I always call Fuerza Nueva, but the new right-wing parties, the old was Fuerza Nueva, who are Francoists, and they believe Gibraltar es Español, full stop. I mean, the Gibraltarians have no right to self-determination. We're on their land. That is difficult. That will not go away easily. But there is a new situation. There's no doubt that there are people who understand it, and we've got to keep pushing the message across. We don't have an option. We don't have the resources of a large country, so it's difficult. They have far more resources to oppose us than we have to get our message across. But we have to do it. We shouldn't stop. I'm very, very adamant about that.
So we've come all the way from when we were talking, when you started, to where we are today. How does Clive Golt feel about what's happening now at the frontier?
Well, I think we've had no option. I mean, we've been put into the deep end through the Brexit that I told you about before. So we had to make the best of it. I consider that if you take into account how awful it could have been with a hard frontier, we have come a long way. And I think that, objectively speaking, and even though I'm biased to a degree, as a journalist, objectively speaking, I think the evidence is there. The government of the day has achieved a good deal. It may not be the best deal, it may not be the deal we want, but that's what there is. And it has been a good deal because there's going to be a free frontier. People are going to be able to come in. Our economy would have been very severely hit if there was a hard border. That we could not afford to take. And on the other hand, they couldn't afford to take 15,000 people out of work who live there and spend there. And of course, we also spend a lot of money and we buy a lot from Spain. So I think in the end, it is positive for all sides, but it's not perfect by any means.